John McEnroe was Pablo Picasso using a tennis racket instead of a paintbrush. The greatest compliment I ever got was when people called me an artist, McEnroe said. I understand that solo aspect of being an artist, when you're in there by yourself trying to do something great. John McEnroe was a player of considerable skill and finesse, his volleying touch considered the best tennis has ever seen. The subtle nuances he displayed at net, which was just a sliver of his wide arsenal of shots, stood out in sharp contrast to his boisterous outbursts between the lines, which often overshadowed the depth of his game. John McEnroe was controversial, immensely competitive, and prone to outbursts, but there could be no disputing his enormous talents. He possessed a capacity to defeat any competitive style he faced. He could nullify the power and pace of Ivan Lendl, match the aggressive counterpunching of Jimmy Connors, and trade ground strokes with Bjorn Borg, his three biggest rivals. What made John McEnroe a marvel was how easy he could make the game appear, all the while defeating the world's best players and winning seven major singles titles. His deft acumen around the net earned him nine major doubles titles and one major mixed doubles championships. The bombastic John McEnroe won 77 singles titles, 72 in doubles competition, and was ranked number one in the world in both categories, compiling an 877 to 198 win-loss record over his career in singles and a 532 to 103 win-loss mark in doubles. The combined total of 149 titles are the most won by any player in the Open era, highlighted by the 1979 season in which he won 10 singles and 16 doubles titles. John McEnroe's play sparked some of tennis's most intense rivalries, especially with Bjorn Borg and Jimmy Connors. McEnroe won 3 of 4 major finals against Bjorn Borg at the US Open in 1980, at the US Open again in 1981, and at Wimbledon in 1981. John McEnroe lost the Wimbledon final in 1980 to Bjorn Borg, but that match is considered one of the greatest matches ever played in the history of tennis. John McEnroe won 7 of his 14 matches against Bjorn Borg. His battles with Jimmy Connors, who he defeated 20 out of 34 times, were epic matches, but the pair only met in 2 major singles finals. McEnroe lost at Wimbledon in 1982 to Connors, but defeated Connors on the centre court in 1984. Lendl was a tougher foe in 3 major finals. He defeated John McEnroe more often than John McEnroe was able to defeat him. Ivan Lendl defeated John McEnroe at the French Open in 1984 and at the US Open in 1985, while McEnroe captured the 1984 US Open defeating Ivan Lendl. John McEnroe won 3 championships at Wimbledon in 5 trips to the finals. It was the site of his memorable match against Bjorn Borg and his most memorable outburst coming in opening round against Tom Gullikson in 1981. McEnroe later admitted he felt terrible about the incident, but it nonetheless cemented his fiery legacy, and McEnroe later titled his autobiography, You Cannot Be Serious. McEnroe was born in Wiesbaden, West Germany, where his father was stationed in the American Air Force. The family moved to Douglaston, an upper middle class community in Queens, New York. McEnroe began playing tennis at the age of 8, honing his game at the Douglaston Club and then the famed Port Washington Tennis Academy in Long Island. His tireless assault on the game led him to become a junior champion at the 1977 French Open, and few will recall that the first of McEnroe's 17 major titles came as an amateur playing mixed doubles with Mary Carillo at the 1977 French Open. He advanced to the French second round that year and made an unexpected run at the Wimbledon Championships after his play in the qualifying tournament earned him a spot in the main draw. He lost to Connors 6-3, 6-3, 4-6, 6-4 in the semi-finals. He was the youngest semi-finalist in 100 years, and the match was the start of a combative history against his fellow left-hander. McEnroe won 12 of his last 14 matches against Jimmy Connors, starting in 1983 at the Cincinnati Open. John McEnroe's play at Wimbledon led him to attend Stanford University in the fall of 1977, and although he led the Cardinals to the NCAA Division I National Championship and won the national singles title, his stay in California was short lived. He turned professional in late 1978, winning 5 tournaments and defeating Arthur Ashe in his first of 3 Masters Grand Prix championships 6-7, 6-3, 7-5. McEnroe's 3 subsequent Masters Grand Prix year-end championships were 1978 over Arthur Ashe, 1983 and 1984, both over Ivan Lendl. He was also runner-up to Ivan Lendl in 1982. To close out the 1978 majors, McEnroe advanced to the fourth round of the US Open. In 1979, he won the first of his 4 US Open titles, defeating friend Vitas Gerulaitis convincingly 7-5, 6-3, 6-3. At 20 years, 6 months and 24 days old, McEnroe was the youngest US Open champion in 31 years, dating back to when Pancho Gonzalez won the title at the same age in 1948. In 1979, John McEnroe won 10 ATP championships in the singles category. The 1980 season was historic for John McEnroe, playing in back-to-back epic major singles finals against Bjorn Borg. The 1980 Wimbledon final, McEnroe's first ever Wimbledon final, is widely considered one of the finest matches in tennis history, won by Bjorn Borg 1-6, 7-5, 6-3, 6-7, 8-6. The 34-point tiebreaker that decided the fourth set saw McEnroe thwart off 5 match points and Borg stave off 6 set points himself before McEnroe prevailing to force a 5th set. "There's a magic when our names are mentioned together," said McEnroe. "We brought tennis to a place it wasn't at before. It's a match I will remember for the rest of my life," Borg said of the 4.5-hour classic. Another McEnroe-Borg classic would ensue at the 1980 US Open, where McEnroe outlasted Borg 7-6, 6-1, 6-7, 5-7, 6-4. But the duo, who were as different as night and day in playing style and on-court demeanor, were far from through with contesting major singles championships. McEnroe won 10 championships in 1980. He and Borg met again in the 1981 Wimbledon final, with McEnroe battling Borg's heavy topspin baseline game with a picturesque serve and volley match en route to his first Wimbledon title, winning 4-6, 7-6, 7-6, 6-4. The 1981 US Open would pit the two combatants against one another for a fourth time with a major title at stake, and McEnroe remained composed after dropping the first set to win in 4-6, 6-2, 6-4, 6-3. John McEnroe added the second of his 3 Wimbledon titles in 1983, defeating unseeded and relatively unknown New Zealand native Chris Lewis 6-2, 6-2, 6-2. Perhaps John McEnroe's finest year on tour came in 1984, when he recorded the best single-season win-loss record in the Open era, comprising an 82 wins to only 3 defeats. That's a winning percentage of 96.5%. He advanced to his lone French Open final, losing a tightly contested 5-setter to Ivan Lendl, one that saw McEnroe take a 2-sets-to-love lead, and eventually he lost the match to Ivan Lendl 3-6, 2-6, 6-4, 7-5, 7-5. He won his third Wimbledon by routing Connors 6-1, 6-1, 6-2, and evened the score against Lendl at the US Open with a prolific performance 6-3, 6-4, 6-1. John McEnroe had reached the height of his career. In the following 8 seasons, he advanced to just one major singles final, 7-6, 6-3, 6-4 loss to Lendl in 1985 at the US Open. He took a 6-month break from playing in 1986 and a 7-month break in 1987 and never regained his form upon his return. In his 16 years playing in the majors, John McEnroe only entered the Australian Open 5 times and played the French Open 10 years, though unevenly dispersed throughout his career. John McEnroe's doubles prowess may be among the best of all time. He forged a virtually unstoppable tandem with Peter Fleming, and the duo won 52 doubles titles, including 4 at Wimbledon in 1979, 1981, 1983 and 1984, and 3 at the US Open in 1979, 1981 and 1983. He was 9-3 in major doubles finals, winning a 5th Wimbledon doubles title with German Michael Stich in 1992 and a 4th US Open championship with Aussie Mark Woodford in 1989. McEnroe was ranked number 1 in doubles for 270 weeks. McEnroe was ranked in the world top 10 in singles for 9 years, finishing number 1 in 4 consecutive years from 1981 to 1984, and spent 170 weeks atop the singles rankings. He was the top ranked doubles player for 5 consecutive years from 1979 to 1983. He played Davis Cup for 12 years, helping the Americans win the Davis Cup 5 times in 1978, 1979, 1981, 1982, and then again in 1992. For his dedication to Davis Cup play, McEnroe was awarded the Davis Cup Commitment Award by the International Tennis Federation in 2013. John McEnroe also won a record 8 season ending championships, including 5 WCT finals titles and 3 Masters Grand Prix titles from 12 final appearances at those two events. McEnroe earned his 78th doubles title in 2006 when he partnered with Jonas Bjorkman to win the SAP Open in San Jose, California. The win came just a few days shy of his 47th birthday. McEnroe had last won a doubles title at the Paris Indoors in 1992 with his brother Patrick McEnroe. Both brothers are former captains of the United States Davis Cup team and they both entered broadcasting following their careers. John McEnroe is recognized by a younger generation of tennis fans as a familiar face and voice working for CBS, NBC, Tennis Channel and ESPN at all of the major championships. McEnroe has made numerous television and movie appearances and written and collaborated on many books. His 2 autobiographies are aptly titled You Cannot Be Serious and But Seriously.